Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to another opposition view. We are looking ahead to our trip to Bournemouth on Sunday, and with that in mind, we've got Sam Davis here, who's kindly joined us from the Back of the Net podcast. He's going to give us some insight into AFC Bournemouth and what we can expect from Bournemouth when we play them on Sunday. So, without further ado, Sam, it's been quite the mixed bag from Bournemouth as far as the early weeks of the season are concerned. What have you made of Bournemouth's performance so far this season?
Our performances have been all right. Our standout performance has been against Aston Villa away, where we turned in a pretty sort of decent performance, but we've certainly not hit the levels that we know that we can reach. Our points tally so far is probably about right based on how we've played. First couple of games, we got 4 points. Most of us were expecting to get 3 points to Sheffield United at home and then maybe a draw to Villa away. It happened the other way around in the end.
And then
And then you had Manchester City at home. It's a free hit. Obviously, they won 3-1. And then against Leicester away, it was a bit of a poor performance by us. We usually managed to put in a decent performance against them. We didn't, and then we ended up losing 3-1. So not been great so far. Not exactly helped by our injury crisis that we seem to be having at the moment. So where we're at in the table is probably about right.
Fair play. This is now your 5th season of your spell in the top flight, and you came 14th last season. What's your aim for this year? Where do you think you can go from here?
At the start of the season, a lot of fans were very optimistic based on the new signings that we'd got, and we were thinking, maybe we can entertain thoughts of being in the top 10. Don't think it's going to happen. I think we're a team that can be relatively safe in the Premier League, I would hope. Our aim's really, the higher echelons of the bottom half of the table, I suppose. So you're sort of talking 11th, 12th, 13th. That would probably be ideal for us. But if we can get a run of results together, who knows? Maybe we could push for top 10.
I mean, I don't see why not. If I remember rightly, you have finished in the top half before since you've came up. I think you came 9th one season.
Yeah, that's right. I think that position of 9th was a little bit false, but yeah, it did. Based on the number of points we got that season, I think we finished on 46 points, and in any other season that would have finished you in about 11th or 12th. Therefore, I think it was probably a bit false really. So yeah, that was very good when we finished 9th. So anything top 10 would be all right.
So you're looking at your best points tally, do you reckon, to date to finish in the top half?
Yeah, it would have to be. Yeah, I mean, if we could get sort of over, around 50 points or a little bit more, then that would be fantastic, and that would certainly represent a good season for us. Given our facilities and given how small of a club we are, any season where we're staying in the Premier League is progression and success, like so to speak. We're signing new young players along the way that can hopefully stay with us for a number of years to come. So we are slowly building. And also slowly building things off the pitch as well, which is good news.
Infrastructure and whatnot.
Yeah, that's right. So obviously a lot of Premier League fans ridicule us with the size of our stadium, rightly so. 11,500. It's not a Premier League facility.
There are conference stadiums with higher capacities. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's scary, and every time we have a home game, the opposition is singing "My Garden Shed is bigger than this" and all that. Absolutely fair enough.
I've not actually heard that one.
Yeah, it was the West Ham fans that were singing that one. I've heard a few other clubs singing it, but it's at the moment our training facilities are actually right next to the stadium, and we're actually building a new multi-million training complex off-site, about 3-4 miles away from where the ground is. It's going to be sort of one of the best in the south. A couple of indoor pitches, 10 outdoor pitches, loads of all the facilities, and that should then clear the room for a potential new site, which is just adjacent.
Expand the stadium onto the old site, perhaps.
Well, it wouldn't be a case of expansion. It would be building a new one, because our stadium's too close to some housing at the moment. But there's been an athletic stadium near to our existing ground that's been earmarked for future development, but our training pitches are right next to that at the moment. So it's got to be one and then the other. So the training facilities, there are shovels in the ground at the moment, which is good. And then, fingers crossed, in a couple of years' time, we might be able to sort of announce the news that there will be a new stadium for us, which would be ideal.
Fantastic. So, like I say, this is your fifth campaign. At what stage do you have to acknowledge that you need to kick on?
I think now's about right in terms of we want progression. I think we've been guilty of treading water a little bit for the first few seasons, but as time's gone on, we've shown in the transfer market that we're willing to put our money where our mouth is a little bit, and buy expensive players. Whose signings have been justified. I've got to say there have been some sort of tremendous signings that have retained their value, or if not, so, sort of increased them, and they've been decent players for us. And at the moment we're a slight transitional phase whereby a lot of the players that brought us up from like League Two to League One to the Championship slowly being phased out. People like Simon Francis, Charlie Daniels, who just picked up an injury. Whether he'll play in a Bournemouth shirt again, I don't know. But with the new players that are slowly coming in, I think now is a time that Eddie Howe is trying to push us on, and I think a top 10 finish would perhaps represent that maybe that's happening now for
Progress
us.
being made.
Exactly, that's right.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that's moved nicely on to my next question, which is over time. Like obviously, Eddie Howe's been in charge for a long time now at Bournemouth, as far as modern day management's concerned. Over that sort of time period, we know all too well under David Moyes, who was here with Everton for 11 years, that a long-serving manager, the opinion from the fans of him can change over time. What's the current view of Eddie Howe as far as Bournemouth fans are concerned? Where do you stand on him?
Still very positive. I mean, the club is built around the guy. Was fortunate enough to meet him pre-season a couple of the season before last, where the club basically called upon a number of fans to come and meet the management, and they wanted to see how the matchday experience could be improved, how to integrate the fans more. And his heart and soul is into the club, and everything is built around him. If we didn't have him, it would be scary what would happen to the club. But he's still viewed in very much high regard. You can see through the way we play that he's trying to do things the right way. He's signing young talent, bringing them on, players like David Brooks as an example. So the more players we get like him, then the better. And he's a good man management as well. He's a good man manager, and he can hopefully be here for many years to come. It's just quite scary when teams of your kind of size maybe lose their manager. Yeah, because I think he's too inexperienced for say top six. But then that next kind of tranche of teams, that's when we start to think, my God, if they perhaps they're going to be looking at him, and that's always a scary time for us.
Oh, interestingly enough, he's a boyhood Everton fan, isn't he, Eddie Howe?
He is.
And I'm very interested that we've never actually gone in for him because, like I say, I mean, maybe it's stagnated over recent years because you've been in the league a bit longer now. But in those early years, I thought I wouldn't mind him, and maybe that hasn't changed. It's just we're a bit happier with the manager we've got now compared to say Sam Allardyce a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I mean that wasn't the best of times, was it? But
absolutely not.
Yeah, I think. I mean, if clubs like you are, like happy with the managers you've got, and teams maybe like Leicester City, for example, I think Spurs is one of the teams that have been linked with him. But I think he's probably too small for them. But the more he brings AFC Bournemouth on and develops the club, then it's going to be more likely that he'll at some point go.
Let's hope not anyway, because it's clear that he's a good fit for Bournemouth. Like, there's not many managers and clubs who fit together perfectly, and that does seem like the case of Eddie Howe and Bournemouth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. As I said, the club is completely built around him. He's absolutely integral to the club. I think he's got a lot of admirers from even other Premier League managers who are happy to sort of loan out their young talent to us. Of course, across the park, Liverpool have done the same with Harry Wilson, who started well with us. And I think with Liverpool and with other clubs that have loaned us players, I think they sort of they obviously want their players to be playing the right way when they come back. And he had the choice of Harry Wilson, that is, playing under Steve Bruce at Newcastle or playing under Eddie Howe at Bournemouth.
I know which one I'd pick.
Exactly, that's right. So that sort of does us favours as a club with getting these young players in, and also it enhances Eddie Howe's reputation, so it can only be a good thing.
Well, we talk about style of play. I was just going to move on to games between Everton and Bournemouth have always generated a really entertaining spectacle. Why do you think that's the case?
I don't know. It's bizarre, really, isn't it? I mean, for us in the Premier League era, it all started with that 3-3 at Dean Court, which was bizarre. What a bizarre match. We
I
thought,
always I always think of that as the beginning of the end for Roberto Martinez when we threw that
yeah,
away.
yeah,
Which was a shame because Martinez was another very expansive manager.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you did. I mean, like he came to Everton with the promise of, bringing his sort of, brand of football to you, and it kind of worked for a bit. But then it just didn't happen for him. But yeah, I mean, the games between us do seem to,
High
bring
score
out.
lines.
Yeah, I
Six
mean,
six three. I've seen we had a 2-2 last season, which was quite an interesting game
yeah,
at
that's right.
Bournemouth. I can't actually recall our home game against you last season. I think.
Uh,
Oh no, we won. It
yeah,
was that
you
wasn't
want.
actually very entertaining, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, you won 2-0. I mean, we've not got a point on your turf, I don't think.
But we haven't got a win at Dean Court.
No, that's right. It's always been, yeah, that's right. So
It
we've
so
beaten you. So it swings and roundabouts really. So it certainly makes for an interesting one this Sunday for sure.
definitely. Just going back to your last game, VAR has been in use for 4 match days now, and it's a little off topic, but you guys seem to be had off in your last game at Leicester. So where do you stand on VAR? Do you think it's being used wrongly, or what is the issue with VAR?
It seems to be just a little bit inconsistent. Really disappointed with the way it's being executed at the moment in the Premier League.
Absolutely.
Callum Wilson had a challenge from Tielemans from Leicester,
Yeah,
and it
that was
was
pretty sickly
yeah,
to look at.
it was, and on pundits, Phil Thompson, Don Goodman, who was doing the co-commentary at the time on the Premier League World Feed, and numerous people were saying it was a red card offence. What I found really strange about it was that the people on the TV. I mean, I watched the World Feed afterwards. I watched the whole game, and apparently people who are watching the TV are supposed to be seeing the same angles that the VAR people are. But the camera they used to review the incident was one on the halfway line that was about 40 yards from the challenge. Whereas you actually watched back and there were better angles to see how dangerous a challenge it was. So if that's what they were viewing, it's nonsensical.
It's not
Surely
fit
they
for purpose.
it isn't. It isn't at all, and it just seems to be so inconsistent. And I guarantee there'll be another challenge this weekend or some weekend soon, exactly like that, and they'll issue a red card. Absolutely bizarre. Not an advocate of it at all. Been really disappointed, and it's also just the way that the fans, both inside the stadium and on TV, do not seem to be communicated with to let them know that things are going on sort of efficiently enough. So it needs
It's
to
a,
be changed.
I do think VAR is the right thing to do, but it needs to be done properly. We saw it done very well at the World Cup, even at the
Mm.
Women's World Cup just this summer gone, and
Yeah.
it was a lot better than what we're getting in the Premier League. And this sort of issue that they keep trying to peddle is that we don't want to undermine the referee, but the referee needs undermining if he makes a mistake.
Yeah.
That's the
Oh,
point.
yeah. Exactly. 100%. And I don't. I mean, I've not seen it so far, but I don't think there's been a VAR incident this season where the referee's actually used the screen on the side of the pitch. I mean, it all seems to be just sort of indications in his
Someone
ear.
whispering in their ear, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't quite know why that's the case. But either way, I'm not a fan of it at the moment, sadly.
No, nor am I, to be honest, mate. Until something changes and the way the referees are interpreting it,
Yeah.
it's just not going to work. Not in the Premier League.
No, that's right.
Right, back to the Everton versus Bournemouth game, of course, which is
Yeah.
coming up. What have you made of Everton's early season performances?
Good. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, you've done really well so far. I've been very impressed. Certainly in the last game that you had, where you beat Wolves 3-2. There were a few performances that maybe gave me a bit of hope, like Aston Villa away
Oh my
2-0.
goodness,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I saw that and thought, we've got a chance of actually, getting a result against these boys, a month later. But then I thought Wolves are a decent side. They're going to be one of these teams. You sort of see the table and you think, okay, the top six is probably the top six, and then there's a few places up for grabs after that. And I consider you Wolves, Leicester, maybe even West Ham this season. I don't know, but a number of sides that are in contention for the next sort of seventh, eighth.
Certainly.
So yeah. So to get a result against them, I thought was really good. But yeah, I've been really impressed. I mean, aside from that match against Villa, it's been all right, and it seems that there's more to come from Everton as well, which is quite scary. And you just get the feeling that when it all clicks, they could be a match for anyone. But just like us, I just think you haven't quite reached those top levels yet. I mean, I don't think we've got out of third gear yet, so I'm hoping this is the weekend where we do it. But if you do, you could be a match for anyone.
I think you're playing us at the right time though, because we tend to start slowly and click into gear, like you say, later in the season. Whereas Bournemouth, I've noticed, seem to get off to good starts normally.
Yeah, that's right. We certainly did last season. I mean, I'd say about now's average, but we're very much a confidence team. So when we lose, sometimes we go on a horrendous run. Now we lost to Man City 3-1, and it wasn't something that people were coming away pessimistically for. Playing Man City, it was a good performance. We registered
You did
shots on
play very well,
target.
if I remember rightly.
Yeah, compared to last season where we lost 1-0, it was a lesser score. It was you'd call it a better scoreline, so to speak, but we didn't register a shot on target. Whereas this time we gave them a game, lost a bit more heavily, but we all came away, fairly optimistic. But then against Leicester, less so. I mean, despite the VAR issue with Callum Wilson, we deserved to lose that match. Absolutely no bones about the result. But you know, there are a few players coming back from injury. Lewis Cook is one of them, who's an influential midfielder. Maybe a couple of other players. So that's something that will hopefully mean some of our players that are basically shoo-ins for starting will be, a bit less. Hopefully more concerned about their starting place, because players like Ryan Fraser, he's had a poor start, but there's no one else at the moment, so he's going to be named. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one.
Maybe coasting a little bit.
I think so, and there's been a number of players, sort of guilty of that. But when more come back, there's going to be more competition for places, and hopefully, it's going to improve our performances as a whole.
So finally, where do you think Everton will finish, and where do you think Bournemouth will finish?
You're a top 10 side. You'll finish top 10. I'm pretty certain. With the additions that you've made, of course, you've had Richarlison for a bit, but like Iwobi coming in as well. I don't know, just some astute signings really. I think you'll be all right, and I think you'll be sort of looking for top 10. I would say maybe seventh or eighth this season.
Same
Bournemouth,
again, more or less.
yeah, pretty much. Bournemouth 11th. Although we all hope top 10, I think 11th or 12th is
I'd say it's about right. You shouldn't be in any real danger, I don't think, this season.
No, I don't think so. I mean, there have been seasons previous where we've been optimistic, but it's been misplaced optimism. And but this time, I think we're looking at it, and head and heart, it's sort of tallying up, and we're thinking, yeah, 11th, 12th, that should be about right.
It does sound like you're a very grounded bunch, which is a rare thing in the Premier League, I've found these days.
Yeah, I
Talking
think
to other fans.
it's a bizarre one because we started the season so confidently, and we thought, well, in terms of how the fans thought that that we go into it, we drew against Sheffield United, then we beat Aston Villa, and you're thinking, yeah, what, we might be all right this season, and we were looking at it compared to the teams that we thought would be dropping points, but then you see now they're all starting to pick up points, like no more so than teams like Sheffield United, who managed to pull out a draw out of the bag at Chelsea. So you're thinking like, we can't rest on our laurels expecting the bottom three to be the bottom three. So really interesting running in the Premier League this season. I'm excited to see the whole relegation, battle pan out, but I just hope that we're not a part of it. But I don't think we should be.
Fair play. First of all, you mentioned Ryan Fraser maybe coasting a little bit. So who do you think will be the danger men for Bournemouth? Who do you reckon could hurt Everton?
Obviously, yeah, you've got the three that most people look at: Callum Wilson, Ryan Fraser, Josh King. However, I'm going to go for someone like a bit under the radar or off the radar in terms of our midfield duo: Jefferson Lerma, Colombian powerhouse in
Real
the midfield.
nuisance in the midfield,
He's
if
a
I'm not
right old
mistaken.
nuisance. he's a type of player that you'd love to have playing for your team, but you'd absolutely hate him, and you're playing against you because he's a horrible player to play against. And also Philip Billing as well, who we signed from Huddersfield, really composed on the ball. Terriers fans said he had a bit of an attitude problem. He's been all right for us so far, hasn't caused too much problems, and has got man of the match performances from the fans' opinions, that is, on numerous times. Won't be popping up scoring, but he's a really good cog in the middle of the park there.
Well, you say he doesn't score. I think he scored against us for Huddersfield last season.
Oh, did he? Did he? Oh, interesting.
So hopefully not a bad omen there.
You think? Yeah, who knows?
And on the note of omens, what is your prediction for the match to finish off?
I've got I mean, I'm usually sort of very grounded with my shot, but I think we could sneak something. I certainly don't think it's going to be a runaway 3-0 or anything. I think maybe 2-1, but I wouldn't equally be surprised if we came away drawing as well. So I'm going to put my optimistic hat on and go for a 2-1 Bournemouth win.
Well, I'm in the very same boat as you, mate. I was going for the sort of middle of the road, and I was going to say we edge the 2-1. So
yeah, interesting.
It's very typical locking of horns there, I think.
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
And finally, on the lighter side, you always finish with the final question. What's your favourite film and why? We always spring this little surprise on people.
You know what? I can't say I've got a favourite. Well, one of the ones I watched the other day, it was on E4, Crocodile Dundee 2.
2?
Yeah, the second one where
Very
he goes into the outback into Australia, and I found it absolutely hilarious. And it's just having that kind of heroic sort of character. So that's that's the one that sort of springs into my head. And I think like Eddie Howe is probably our Mick Dundee. So that's the kind of football Crocodile Dundee link I'll bring in to tie it up.
Very nice. Well, we've had our fair share of Aussies ourselves, but
yeah.
My usual one, I'll say this every week of the year as I do this question at the end of literally every opposition show I do, but mine's Ferris Bueller. It's just, again, it's quite an enjoyable, full of laughs. Can't argue with it, really.
Yeah, awesome.
Right, it's been brilliant to speak to you anyway, Sam, so thanks for joining us on the show today.
No problem. Cheers, James.
Not a problem. So there you have it. We've got Bournemouth coming up away from home on Sunday. Be sure to check that out. We'll have loads of content in the build up to that and after the game, of course. So be sure to tune in then. And thanks for watching on the Toffee Blues.